All right, Shalom Aleichem, and welcome to our Wednesday class on Yalkut Yosef. We are in the halachot of Tikun Chatzot. We finished the Dinei Ashkamat HaBoker, the halachot of how a person is supposed to wake up in the morning. We moved quickly to Tikun Chatzot, and we're hopefully going to finish it today and jump into how a person needs to get dressed in the morning, how he needs to cover his head, Dinei Levishat Bgadim, B'kisui HaRosh. But for now, we're going to stick to the end of Tikun Chatzot. Okay. So we mentioned, if you remember, that the violin of David HaMelech would play and the northern wind would come and play on it, and at midnight, halachic midnight, we called it. And right after that, he understood that he has to wake up and pray to Hashem. So that's the time, the Ari Kadosh says, the halachic midnight, is the time where we need to pray this special tefillah that's divided into two parts. We'll see a little bit more of that today. So he points out here in Halacha Mem Zayin that the time of Tikun Chatzot goes not according to the time in Israel. Every country has their own halachic midnight. You have places in the world that the halachic midnight could be 1:30, and in Israel it's 12:30. You can't do it before the halachic midnight of where you are staying in, right? Some people in Scandinavia, for them the hours could be crazy. Whatever it is, it goes according to where you are. Just like Shabbat, just like Havdalah. People in Milan and France sometimes have to do Havdalah at 10:30 at night. Same idea. The timing goes according to where you are. And if it's too early and you want to start, he says, do not. Wait until it reaches the midnight where you are in. So what is the time for Chatzot? And he puts here also a mark. By the way, the time for Chatzot is also the time when you're allowed to start saying Selichot. If it's 10:30 at night and I want to say Selichot before I go to bed, you cannot. At least the majority of it that has parts, Yud Gimel Midot, you cannot just read it. It can only be read after Chatzot. So how do we measure that Chatzot? He explains it here, but we explained it once in the past. I'll just go through it quickly. We go from sunrise until sunset. We divide that into 12. Let's take an easy example. Sunrise, 6 o'clock. Sunset, 6 o'clock. So that's 12 hours. That's 12 halachic hours. You divide that into 12. Each one is an hour. So take 6 hours forward. We got to noon. That's noon of the day. That's midday. Add 12 hours to that. That's midnight. So that was an easy example. If let's say it's a little earlier, if sunrise is at 5 o'clock and sunset is at 7 o'clock, then already you have to divide 14 hours into 12. So each hour is more like an hour and 12 minutes or whatever that is. So you take that and you multiply it by 6 and you get to midday, and then add 12 hours to that and you get to midnight. It's much easier today when we have calendars or apps that tell us exactly the time, but it's good to know how it's done. Brian, Shalom Aleichem, we missed you a long time. Baruch haba. All right.
Thank you. Nice seeing you. Hope you and your family are safe.
Thank you so much. Hopefully we only see you in good, happy occasions. Matti and Baruch haba as well.
Amen. 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 Amen.
All right.
Sorry.
So those of you that joined now, we are finishing up with the halachot of Tikun Chatzot, a special prayer that is read at midnight, or at least from midnight until dawn in the morning. We'll see the hours where you could read it. That was inspired by David HaMelech's prayer to Hashem at that time. By the way, it says that David HaMelech, we mentioned him already, before his tefillah in the morning, he had a committee every day. And the committee, the people would come and say, we are hungry, we need bread, we need water, Am Yisrael is cooking, we need this, we need that. And it says that he would have those committees or gatherings before his tefillah. So I heard once a beautiful question. We know that halachically, you're not supposed to deal with anything before you pray. The first thing you do in the morning is pray. Then you deal with business. Then you go to the office. Then you take care of whatever you need to take care of. So how is David HaMelech having meetings before his tefillah? So there's a beautiful pasuk in Tehillim to explain it. The pasuk says like this: Licha amar libi bakshu panai. It says, Licha Hashem amar libi, my heart said, for you Hashem bakshu panai, that people should ask me, meaning should come to the king and tell me their troubles. Hashem, I did it for you. Why? Et panecha Hashem avakesh. So that I'm about to pray to you, and before I pray to you, I need to hear this, so that I know what to pray for. So the whole purpose why David HaMelech had these meetings before his tefillah is so that when he prays, he could pray properly. So you learn an interesting idea from here, that whenever you're not allowed to do something before tefillah, it's because it's not for your tefillah. But if you're doing something for the tefillah, then you are allowed to do it. David HaMelech was listening to this so that he knows what to pray for. There's no bread, there's no water. Same thing with us. When we need to do something that it's for the tefillah, for example, my car is far from Kanisan, I have no gas. I'm not allowed to stop in a gas station. I have to straight go to pray. I'm filling up gas so that I could get to the Beit Knesset and pray. Of course, if I have enough to get to the Beit Knesset, then it's better I go pray first. But whatever is being done towards the tefillah, we're allowed to do. And that was David HaMelech. Everything he did was towards Hashem. And if he did something that's not usual, we have to learn from it. We learn from this. All right. Lekatchila, he says, it's preferable to say Tikun Le'ah Kodem Amud HaShachar. So let's see the times. As I told you, this special prayer that is called Tikun Chatzot, the fixing of midnight, it has a timing. You could read it from midnight until Alot HaShachar. Alot HaShachar is 72 minutes before sunrise. That's the halachic time that you're allowed to read this, when it's still completely dark outside. So he says here, however, if in those 72 minutes you were late, let's say I woke up and I'm already in those 72 minutes, so I'm not supposed to read anything, right? He says, no. The first part that is Tikun Rachel, do not read. But if you're already late, you could use those 72 minutes to still read Tikun Le'ah. So as I mentioned, there are two parts of it. If you want to open it, you'll see it inside. I don't want to get into the details, but there's timing for each one. One of them is talking, Tikun Rachel it's called, is talking about the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, how we're supposed to cry for it every day. The other is more like Tehillim. So with the Tehillim part, we're more lenient. If you were late, we'll give you that 17 minutes. It's kind of similar to the 18 minutes that they say we accept Shabbat 18 minutes before. Well, we have those 18 minutes in case we forgot something, that we go, we fix, whatever. So those 72 minutes are okay to still read Tikun Le'ah if you haven't read it. But Tikun Rachel, since it talks about tough things, the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, once there's light outside, once you reach those 72 minutes from the bottom, reach, you cannot read it. Okay, technical explanations about the Tikun. Now he says something very interesting. There are groups of people, I've seen this amongst Breslevers. They go to forests, they like to do what they do, they like to pray to Hashem alone, where they have peace and quiet, but sometimes they do it as a group. So the next halacha, he talks about reading this prayer, Tikun Chatzot, in a group. Is it considered as if we're conceited by doing it as a group? He says like this. Tzibur sheratzu lomar Tikun Chatzot, a group that wanted to say Tikun Chatzot together, they are allowed to, and they should not be worried of yuhara. Yuhara is like gava, pride. But first of all, why? Why would you be feeling proud by reading this? We're supposed to read it, no? So the answer, I think, is that even though this is something that is good for us to read, but sadly, it's not so common. As you see, most of us, haven't heard of it, or we heard of it, we don't do it so much. Hopefully we should, B'ezrat Hashem. So to come and do it as a group, it's as if we're saying, yeah, we do this, we're together in this. So you would think that maybe it's considered like we're conceited, we have gava, look, we're reading this all together. He says, no, there's not gava. Since it's brought in our halacha that this is good to read, you could read it as a group. And he says, I recommend that if you're going to read it as a group, better to do it in Beit HaKnesset, because over there's more holiness. There's yoter kedusha. And berov Adat Melech, he says, in fact, the more people that say it together, it's better. This is an important halacha. Berov Adat Melech. You have a minyan of 10 people, you have a minyan of 50 people. Where is it better to pray? So of course you have to see who the people are, right? And these people have full of avonot, and these people are tzaddikim. Even if they're a minority, perhaps it will be better to pray with the minority. But assuming that we're talking about the same caliber of people, you have here 10, you have here 50. Where is it better to pray? Berov Adat Melech. Wherever there's more people, there's more honor for the king. That's where you need to pray. Again, you have to measure according to other criteria as well, but you should know there's a mitzvah of Berov Am. This mitzvah comes up where? In a Brit Milah. They say that when a baby is born, he has an orla, the piece of skin that they're supposed to remove on the 8th day. So according to Kabbalah, that has a lot of tumah in it. And once the 8th day begins, the baby's neshama suffers every second that he has his orla. So we have to do the Brit Milah as soon as we can. Baruch Hashem, in America, I see most people do the Brit Milah early, 8:30 in the morning, right after Shacharit. Sadly, a lot of minyanim in Israel, they don't do it in the morning. They want to do it 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Why? They say, Berov Adat Melech, I want to bring a lot of people. If I do it at 8:30, nobody will come. It's not like the community in Great Neck, everybody's next to each other. Israel, you have one in Cholon, one in Tel Aviv, one in Herzliya. It's a work day. I invite them 4 o'clock. They finish their work day. Everybody comes. We do sameach. So they do it in the afternoon. So the halacha question is, what is more important? is it more important to be quick on the mitzvot? It's called zrizim la mitzvah. Like Avraham Avinu, it says that when Hashem commanded him to go and slaughter his own son, that he was waiting for him for so many years, did he chill or did he wake up early? Vayashkem, he woke up early. Zrizim, quick people, jump to mitzvot, they don't wait. So when it comes to the mitzvah Brit Milah, what's more important? Is it important to jump into the Brit Milah early in the morning and do it right away? Or is it better that we wait to the afternoon, but then we'll have 100, 200 more people because everybody will come? Should I do a small party, but early or late? That's a question when we have two factors that are important to us. One is ברוב עם, a lot of people, which is important. Another is being quick to the mitzvot. Rav Ovadia deals with this, Rav Merilia deals with this. The conclusion is that it's more important to be quick to the mitzvah than to do it with a lot of people. All right, so you could take from this also regarding Kiddush Levana, if you want to do something on the time that you're allowed to do Kiddush Levana, or should I wait to do it with a lot of people? According to this, it is greater to do it quick on time, unless there's a benefit in the mitzvah itself if you wait. For example, the mohel that's going to come in the morning is not in the same level as the mohel that will come in the afternoon. Since the mitzvah of the milah can be done in a higher level, if we wait, then we do it. All right, so that's one example where we're allowed to. Or, I don't know, think to yourself, when we push off the mitzvah, we could do it in a better way. That's when you're allowed to. But just so that you have more people, that's not enough of an excuse to push off the mitzvah. Better to do it early in the morning. I know some of you have retired from that department, but I believe most of you, Baruch Hashem, are still in shape, if not for your kids, for your grandkids, but Baruch Hashem, in America it's done in the right way. It's better to do it early in the morning. All right. This halakha generally talks about women. Are women supposed to say it or not supposed to say it? So women are not supposed to. There's no obligation, just like there's not really an obligation on the man. It's a strong recommendation to do it, especially if you're up at midnight. But he says, but if a woman is a tzadikah and she wants to get close to Hashem and cry over the destruction of Bet HaMikdash, then she can read this prayer called Tikun Chatzot. She's allowed to. He marks here that in reality we don't see that women are doing it, but if they want to, they can. Now he talks anu halacha nun bet, about someone that he's a Torah teacher. The value of Torah teacher's time is very important because he's learning Torah all day, and you'll see throughout the book that we'll learn, Yalkut Yosef, he always puts the value of learning Torah in the highest place. Compared to a few things, hopefully today we'll touch one comparison, when he compares it to people that are fasting. What's more important, to fast or to learn Torah? So we'll see that, Be'ezrat Hashem. Bruchim Abayim, Tony, Yona, I hope I'm not missing anybody. So he says like this, that special Talmid Chacham scholar, should he say Tikun Chatzot or should he not? So he says no, even though his time is so valuable, because he could be learning Torah. What's more important, to learn Torah or to read this special tefillah? Even though his time is very valuable, but if he's awake in this time, then he should read the Tikun Chatzot. If Yalkut Yosef says that, we understand how big it is that when you're up at midnight to read this Tikun Chatzot, even though he could be learning Torah, and that's holding the entire world, that's the pillar that's holding the entire world, still, a Talmid Chacham like that should read Tikun Chatzot. All right? Especially during the 3 weeks. Why during the 3 weeks? The 3 weeks between Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av are the 3 weeks of the destruction of Bet HaMikdash. That's what this whole tefillah is about. Tikun Chatzot is crying, Hashem, why don't we have a Mikdash? We miss our Bet Mikdash. So the main important time to read it is during the 3 weeks. So he says, especially in the 3 weeks, that Talmid Chacham should put Torah aside and read his Tikun Chatzot. But he says, but don't read the extras. Just like many tefillot throughout history, additions come into it. Oh, so usually this is bold, that part is not bold. He says, read what you have to read. Don't add extra things, because at the end of the day, you could be learning Torah right now, which is more important. But the original script, what the Ari HaKadosh gave us, the Tikun Chatzot, that you should read. And generally, he says here that also Talmidei Chachamim, these people that learn Torah, he says, I don't recommend you to read a lot of Tehillim. Why shouldn't they read Tehillim? Because on their level, when they read Tehillim, in quality, it's as if they're not learning Torah. You could be learning Gemara, you could be learning Halachot, you could be learning deep things. Instead, you're reading Tehillim, which is just verbalizing. We'll see soon in one of the interpretations here, he brings that there's a difference between reading Tehillim without understanding what you're reading and reading Tehillim when you do understand. But let's assume that I'm just reading it without understanding. He says, don't read so much Tehillim. A little bit, okay, but your time is important. You could be learning Torah that's holding the world. So if you're a avrech, if you're a rabbi, if you're someone that's his Torah is his life, don't let go of the Torah to read Tehillim. Leave the Tehillim for those that they can't learn. That's what they're able to do. It says, Kol echad lefi kocho, everybody according to his strength. So now I'm going to read the comments that I told you about. It says here, if Talmid Chacham is allowed to stop his learning to read Tehillim, so he says like this, Im koret Tehillim im pirush advarim, if he reads Tehillim with the interpretation, so it's not just verbalizing, it's understanding, it's a limud, it's a learning, and of course, his value of reading this Tehillim, because he understands it, it's compared to someone that's learning Torah on the deepest level. But if he reads Tehillim without Havanam, without understanding, he said it's like a prayer. It's still a big deal. A prayer, beautiful, right? But it's not clear that the value of that prayer is equivalent to what he could be doing when he's learning Torah. So he goes on the side a little bit here, but you'll see here throughout the book many times, Yalkut Yosef, to him, the value of learning Torah is the highest place. If people are going to fast and it's going to make them not learn Torah or not focus because they don't have their coffee, he will go against it. He will say, what are you gaining? Torah is the biggest thing. Don't give up on Torah for these things. There's different opinions, but we're learning Yalkut Yosef. This is his approach. Torah, number one. Here, he brings the Meiri. The Meiri is one of the interpreters on the Shas, on the Talmud. He has a book called Beta Bechira. And on the Gemara in Baba Kama Tzadibet, he brings the Meiri that says, Ra'ui lekol osek b'Torah. It's important and worthy for anyone that learns Torah shelo yesagef atzmo b'taniot, to not torture himself with fasting with no need. Why? That's going to take away from your ability. I heard once a story about a great rabbi that he took upon himself to fast for 3 days. You know, 1 day or 2 days in a row, it's not equivalent to 1 day and then another day. 3 days in a row, there's a calculation, there's a math behind it. It's equivalent to a very high number. The more you do in a row, it's equivalent to many days of fasting. So when you reach 3, it's like a big deal. It's like 40, it's considered 40 days of fasting. So one rabbi, he was trying to do that. And it says that on the 3rd day of his fast, right, he was almost about to finish it. He was trying to learn this Tosfot, this deep learning in the Gemara with the Tosfot, and he just couldn't get it. He understood that it's because his mind is not there. He hasn't eaten in a few days. So even though he was very close to finishing the fast, he broke the fast after 3 days almost, so that he can understand that Tosfot, had a drink, had a coffee, whatever it is, and went back to the learning. This story shows that the value of learning Torah, of understanding the depth of Torah. When we just pass through the pages, we don't always understand what a big deal it is. But whatever value fasting has, he gave up on that just for understanding one little part for a 3-day fast. So this is the approach that we'll see in Yalkut Yosef. Now he remarks regarding how much a person has to push himself to learn Torah when he has free time. So he brings Rav Aharon Volkin, that brings in the name of the Gra, the Gaon Mivilna, that there's a Mishnah in Avot. Some of you have been with us in the Pirkei Avot. Brian, you're here. You're one of the founders of our Pirkei Avot. It's nice to see you. We have here Brian and Steve. That's how it began, together with Simon. Slowly, the crowd grew, Baruch Hashem. But in our Pirkei Avot classes, we learned that there are 48 different ways. You remember, first time was in your house. So we learned 48 different ways in which we can acquire Torah. Right? It says over there that you shouldn't do this, you should do that, all these little things. So one of the things that is mentioned over there is mi'ut sicha, by not talking too much. You want to acquire Torah, don't be a talker. So the Rav Aharon Volkin says, no, I have a different interpretation to that. You want to acquire Torah, you want to be someone that understands Torah, mi'ut sicha, then don't talk a lot, is not to say that it's not good to talk. It means don't talk a lot, but talk a little. You have to talk a little. You have to make certain breaks in your learning, or else your mind is going to become like toast. It's going to burn. You have to take the breaks, take a breather. Mi'ut sicha. Make stops. If you want to grow in Torah, make stops, which is interesting because all the rabbis will tell you, don't stop the learning, go as much as you can. But I guess it depends who's the crowd you're talking to. Some people, when you tell them go and learn, they would learn Torah until they would faint. We've heard of rabbis like this. They wouldn't stop. In our generation, we need that stop. Let's take our coffee, let's take a breather, and dive right in. But the break is not for the break. The break is for when we come back to the learning. Talking a little, but not in a negative way. Talk a little. You need to talk a little. That's what Rav Avokin is saying. Interesting. Right, if I mention more comments here, yeah. This statement is a beautiful statement by the Rambam. If you remember the statement from the class today, we did something good. I'm saying it to myself. The Rambam says that, let me remind you, Arei Miklat. What is Arei Miklat? If someone killed someone by mistake, his punishment is that he has to go to Ir Miklat. Ir Miklat is a city where he is safe. The guy that his family member was killed cannot take vengeance in that city. It's like a protected city. He has to stay in that city until a Kohen Gadol dies. That's a topic for a different time. But just about that. Talmid shegala le'ir miklat, maglin rabo imo. If a student, he says this halacha, when someone killed by mistake, and now he needs to go to that protected city, his rabbi has to come with him. Tiflag, the rabbi didn't do anything. Now the rabbi has to come with him. He says that's the halacha. You know why? Shechayei ba'alei chokhmah umevakshia, because the life of those that have wisdom and seek for it, belot talmud kemitah chashuvim. Without learning, it's like death. It's not a life anymore. That person has a rabbi. The rabbi, he's learning Torah from him, so he has life. Now, this guy doesn't deserve a death penalty. He just deserves to go to Ir Miklat. If he has a Rav that's teaching him Torah, now he has to go to the Ir Miklat. If you don't bring the Rav with him, you give him a death penalty. It's like death. If someone is seeking for wisdom of Torah and cannot achieve it, it's equivalent to death for him. Now, I know this sounds very far away, but this is what the Rambam said. And I can imagine some Gedolim nowadays, imagine, Avdil, someone like the chief rabbi of Israel, tell him you cannot learn any more Torah. You cannot learn. What is he going to have in his life? His whole life is so, how can you pull that away from him? The Rambam said it's not just about the chief rabbi. Anyone that is a Baal Chokhmah, that has wisdom and seeks to learn, if you take the ability away from him to learn, it's like you gave him a death penalty. So listen to this.
What if the rabbi has students in the town where he's at?
I honestly, I hear your question. I have the same question. I don't know how it works with it. Maybe the rabbi gets a free pass. He goes in and out. I don't know. You're right. That's a good point. All the other people are also dependent on him. So that's a good question. We have to look into that. But anyway, we know that guy that now got deported to that Ir Miklat, to that city, we don't neglect him. He has to have the visitations from the rabbi so that he could learn Torah. He didn't deserve a death penalty. But it's a good question. I was thinking the same thing. All right. Another comment by Rabbi Yalkut Yosef on the side notes regarding Ta'ani Dibur. So we have a few things that are actually the rabbis of Israel came out with a statement that they're asking that tomorrow a lot of people of Israel, whoever can, should take upon themselves to do a fast. And if they can't fast, they should take upon themselves not to talk. Only Divrei Torah. They came out with a whole, with Rav Amar on it, with a lot of big Rav Mazuz, big rabbis came standing on it. Why? Because we know that these things have value when you do a Ta'ani Dibur, when you say you won't talk. It's not just that, your mouth is thin. Lashon hara, we believe, is something so terrible. We take it lightly. But it's the truth. People tell me sometimes, no, it's the truth. What is it? That's Lashon hara. If it wasn't the truth, it would be something else. It would be Motzi Shem Ra. Lashon hara is when it's true. You're still not allowed to say it. So when we're quiet, like it or not, no Lashon hara is coming out. I know women that take upon themselves, when they want to do a Kabbalah, something upon themselves, they say, okay, today, 1 hour, from 6 to 7, I'm not talking on my phone. No. Maybe the phone call will lead to this, will lead to that, there'll be Lashon hara. So that's Ta'ani Dibur. So he's talking about the importance of the Ta'ani Dibur. So listen to what he brings here. He brings a source from the Noam Elimelech. I may have his book here, Kadosh Elyon. I want to show you his book. Who was like the Noam Elimelech? Where is it? Such a beautiful book. Come on. All right, it's here somewhere. We'll find it. The Noam Elimelech was a Tzaddik Elyon, Tzaddik Kadosh. If you just read the introduction to his book, you understand that this person is not a human being. He's like an angel. The way he thinks, the way he looks at, really, really top Kedusha, the Noam Elimelech. The Noam Elimelech says that if someone fasts from Shabbat till Shabbat, by the way, Rav Abu Chatzera, as known as the Baba Sali, he would do that. Motzei Shabbat, he would begin a fast until Friday night. 7-day fast. That fast, he says, counts as 65,600 ta'aniyot. 65 is 65,600 fasts. Don't ask me how he got to this calculation. I don't know the math. But this is what he says. When you fast 7 days in a row, and 65,000, it's as if to say, they say that that's a fast for all of Am Yisrael. Tzaddikim, very few in generations have done it. If you heard about the Midrash Me'am Lo'ez, I'm sure you've heard of it. Rav Yaakov Koli. This is what it looks like. Surely you've seen this before. The Midrash Me'am Lo'ez, Rav Palaji, the famous, let me just put this back 1 second, the famous holy rabbi from Izmir, Turkey, Rav Palaji, this author, Rabbi Yaakov Koli, that wrote the Me'am Lo'ez, says about him, says he was like me, that he would fast from Shabbat to Shabbat. That's what a quote, what a statement. But we had today, I don't know who's able to do this. The students of Rav Dov from Tiberias, Tveria, there's a rabbi called Rav Dov Cook. Ekubal, you see him skinny like a bone, like a skeleton. His students are saying about him that he does it a lot of times. He fasts from week to week. But you look at him, you could tell he's always fasting. There's no meat left in the person. Why? So the Noam Elimelech says, if you fast from Shabbat to Shabbat, 65,600 fast. Now he says, there's a Kabbalah that I have, that if you read 3 times the book of Tehillim in one day, it's considered like a ta'anit mi Shabbat le Shabbat. 3 times read Tehillim in one day, it's as if you did that. So if we see some yeshivot, they say to the students, take upon yourself ta'anit dibur, no talking, 3 times read Tehillim today. That action that they do against the whole generation, 65,000 ta'aniyot for protection. So one of the things they're asking is for people to tomorrow, whoever can, do the fast. If not, push yourself with not talking too much or not talking at all, or even half a day fast, or half a day Tani Dibu, and as much as you can to learn Torah, to read Tehillim for the safety of Israel. So maybe it's worth mentioning that as well. Oh, I was hoping we'd finish. Yeah, let me see if we are very close or... No, Bezrat Hashem, you know what? I guess we'll have to open with it next time, the ending of Tikun Chatzot, and we'll jump into the next topic. Gentlemen, it was great seeing you all. Hopefully we'll hear only good news, Bezrat Hashem.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Ziv.
Thank you, Ziv. Stay safe.
Thank you.